New York City has always been a place where the extraordinary meets the unexpected. But on a crisp September evening in 2025, something happened at New York Fashion Week that not even the most seasoned critics, stylists, and celebrities in attendance could have anticipated. The runway had seen legends walk, supermodels dominate, and designers showcase years of labor in the span of minutes. Yet when BTS's Jungkook stepped into the Calvin Klein show for the Spring-Summer 2026 collection, the atmosphere shifted in an instant. It wasn't just a celebrity appearance. It wasn't just an endorsement. It was, in every sense of the word, an event. The kind that makes fashion history. The flashes of cameras turned rapid, almost frantic, as Jungkook's presence electrified the room. Editors raised their phones. Fashion bloggers whispered in awe. Fans outside the venue screamed his name so loudly that the echo carried into the venue itself. This wasn't merely about clothes. This was about Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, the golden maknae who had grown into a global superstar, stepping into a role larger than even music could contain. And with him came the most unexpected detail of the night. Not just the clothes, but the ink that decorated his skin, the piercings that glittered under the stage lights, and the style that spoke of rebellion and freedom all at once. For days after the show, one single question dominated social media. Did Jungkook just redefine the boundaries of fashion at New York Fashion Week? While Calvin Klein's show was celebrated for its minimalist yet modern silhouettes, the true headlines weren't written about fabric, they were written about Jungkook. The piercing that caught the most attention was the new addition he revealed just days earlier in his birthday livestream, a subtle yet striking piece that added depth to his look under the NYFW lights. His tattoos, some long familiar to ARMY but rarely on full display at such a high-profile event, peeked from his sleeves and neckline. Each design seemed deliberate, almost like storytelling etched into his skin, a timeline of personal growth, artistry, and resilience. The tattoos weren't new, but in the context of a global fashion event, they suddenly felt revolutionary. For decades, K-pop idols have been restricted by industry norms that frown upon tattoos and body modifications. Yet here was Jungkook, not hiding, not covering, but embracing his identity in front of the biggest names in fashion. A fan on Twitter summed it up perfectly. Models walked for Calvin Klein tonight, but Jungkook owned Calvin Klein tonight. His tattoos weren't just decoration, they were declaration. Fashion critics too chimed in. Vogue Korea described his appearance as a meeting point between classic elegance and modern rebellion. Meanwhile, the New York Times style section headlined with, "Forget the models, Jungkook closed down New York Fashion Week." The moment Jungkook stepped onto the Calvin Klein stage, the internet caught fire. Within an hour, hashtags like #JungkookNYFW, #CalvinKleinJungkook, and #TattoosAndPiercingsJK trended globally on X, or formerly Twitter. By the end of the night, more than 1 million posts mentioned Jungkook, making him the most discussed musician on the platform that day. Not a new album, not a scandal, not even BTS's comeback news managed to eclipse this single appearance. Fans analyzed every detail in photos and videos. Which tattoo was most visible under the lights? Whether his piercing was newly added for the show? The way his styling emphasized freedom rather than conformity? One ARMY wrote, "Do you realize what this means? Jungkook didn't just attend Fashion Week. He changed how idols will be seen on global stages. He's telling us, this is me, take it or leave it." Another fan compared him to cultural icons like David Bowie and Prince, artists who, through their fashion, defied norms and rewrote cultural narratives. It wasn't only ARMY that amplified the conversation. Mainstream media picked up the story with speed. Elle, Harper's Bazaar, and W Korea dedicated spreads to Jungkook's appearance, highlighting how he merged the role of musician, model, and icon seamlessly. Harper's Bazaar US wrote, "Fashion is about statements, and tonight Jungkook's statement was clear. Freedom is beautiful. Calvin Klein may have designed the clothes, but Jungkook designed the conversation." Even more striking was the reaction from traditional Korean outlets, some of which had historically taken a conservative stance on tattoos. Instead of criticism, many praised Jungkook for normalizing body art in spaces once resistant to it. A cultural critic on the Korea Herald observed, "Jungkook's tattoos and piercings represent more than personal choices. They symbolize a generation that refuses to be boxed into outdated norms."
Every detail of Jungkook's appearance seemed deliberate, and fans were quick to connect symbolism to it. His tattoos, for example, weren't just aesthetic. Many of them, such as the army tattoo on his hand, carried messages of loyalty, love, and identity. Displaying them at New York Fashion Week wasn't only a style choice, but a symbolic declaration. His career, his art, and his image are inseparable from the journey he has shared with fans. His piercings, too, became more than jewelry. They became emblems of courage. In Korean culture, piercings and tattoos have long carried stereotypes, often linked to rebellion, gang culture, or social outcasts. Body art wasn't just frowned upon, it was regulated. Tattooing without a medical license was technically illegal, and idols who had tattoos often had to cover them on TV. Piercings, though less taboo, were also viewed as something unpolished, not suited for a mainstream entertainer. Yet, here was Jungkook, one of Korea's most beloved cultural exports, showing the world that these marks weren't something to be hidden, they were something to be celebrated. Older generations in Korea often hold more conservative views toward body modification. For them, tattoos may evoke memories of the past, associations with criminality or counterculture. But for younger Koreans, especially Gen Z, tattoos are seen as a form of art and personal identity. Jungkook, standing confidently at the intersection of these perspectives, became the embodiment of a cultural shift. He wasn't aggressively challenging the older generation. He wasn't staging a protest. Instead, he normalized them, humanizing them, and showing that an idol can be both polished and raw, both mainstream and counterculture. In doing so, he became not just a K-pop idol, but a cultural ambassador of individuality. To understand why Jungkook's New York Fashion Week moment hit so hard, one must look back at his journey. In the early BTS years, Jungkook was the shy teenager often dubbed the Golden Maknae for his all-around talent. His styling was simple, often dictated by management, with little space for personal expression. But as BTS grew, so did Jungkook. His first visible tattoos in 2019 created waves of discussion. His piercings in the years that followed became symbols of his evolving identity. And by the time he attended Fashion Week in 2025, the transformation was undeniable. It wasn't just that Jungkook looked different. It was that he looked free. Fashion historian Dr. Elaine Chen commented in an interview, "In many ways, Jungkook's NYFW appearance mirrors the evolution of global pop stars. Much like Madonna or Lady Gaga before him, he has moved from being a performer to being a cultural icon, one whose body, style, and choices are inseparable from the art they have shared." When Jungkook walked into New York Fashion Week with tattoos and piercings proudly on display, the conversation didn't stop at the runway. It went much deeper into cultural debates, generational shifts, and the global influence of K-pop. For years, tattoos in South Korea were associated with stigma, historically linked to rebellion, gang culture, or social outcasts. Body art wasn't just frowned upon, it was regulated. Tattooing without a medical license was technically illegal, and idols who had tattoos often had to cover them on TV. Piercings, though less taboo, were also viewed as something unpolished, not suited for a mainstream entertainer. Yet, here was Jungkook, one of Korea's most beloved cultural exports, showing the world that these marks weren't something to be hidden, they were something to be celebrated. Older generations in South Korea often hold more conservative views toward body modification. For them, tattoos may evoke memories of the past, associations with criminality or counterculture. But for younger Koreans, especially Gen Z, Tattoos are seen as a form of art and personal identity. Jungkook, standing confidently at the intersection of these perspectives, became the embodiment of a cultural shift. He wasn't aggressively challenging the older generation. He wasn't staging a protest. Instead, he normalized them, humanizing them, and showing that an idol can be both polished and raw, both mainstream and counterculture. In doing so, he became not just a K-pop idol, but a cultural ambassador of individuality. Of course, Jungkook wasn't alone in this cultural conversation. Millions of ARMY around the globe played their part in amplifying his look. Social media became the battlefield where perceptions were reshaped. Within minutes of his Calvin Klein appearance, fan accounts posted high-definition photos of his tattoos. Some ARMY translated old interviews where Jungkook hinted at the personal meanings behind each design. Others created threads detailing the evolution of his piercings, linking them to different stages of his career. But beyond admiration, ARMY defended him fiercely against critics. When certain conservative voices online questioned his suitability as a role model, fans responded with facts. How Jungkook continues to inspire millions with his discipline, artistry, and kindness, tattoos or not.